Welcome back to CSL TV. And I just hope you guys are having a beautiful, blessed day now. In the Midwest, you already know we getting some mess. But anyway, I hope wherever you at, the weather is nice to y'all, even though it's not nice to us. Subscribe to the channel. You'll be helping your boy out. And this is just a review, a reaction channel, as well as an informational channel. Like, comment, let me know what made you watch CSL TV. I just hope, some of the stuff I'll show you guys is not too mind-boggling and all that type of stuff. But it's just interesting to see what type of people we have in this world, And I know we got some messed up individuals, but I'm not going to make this intro too long. So y'all just have a beautiful, blessed day.
This video out of Oklahoma City is crazy, and we warn you, it might be hard to watch. It all starts when an off-duty cop was flagged down by a person who reported a man had just pointed a gun at him. That man was 31-year-old Reginald Davis, who had reportedly previously been in jail. When the body cam picks up, the off-duty officer calls for backup, and while he's waiting, Davis fires off a round of shots.
Hey, he just shot off a round.
When officers arrive and catch up with him, they try to de-escalate the situation, but Davis refuses to drop his weapon, which he's holding in his hoodie pocket.
Hey, what's your name, bud? What's your name, bud? We do not want to hurt you.
It's in his hand. It's in his hand. See, he's moving it back and forth.
Hey, it's in his right hand.
I got something for you, mother.
Don't do it!
Do not do it, man. We do not want to hurt you, okay?
The guy keeps it up, shouting obscenities at the cops.
He's got the gun in his right hand, but it's in. See, it's a long barrel sticking out the. We don't want to shoot you, okay?
The standoff continues for a while, and the cops start to move in, as the guy says he won't go back to jail, and they'd have to kill him.
Hey, put your hands up and turn around. Put your hands up and turn around.
At this point, cops decide to use less than lethal force and pull out a beanbag shotgun.
We're not here to hurt you, okay?
Beanbag, beanbag, beanbag.
When he's struck by the beanbag, things take a turn.
Get on the ground.
The guy reaches for his gun, and a gun battle ensues. Then, he disappears.
I can't see him. Is he from the Dodge or what? Back up, back up, back up. He's in between the two vans.
From this other angle, you can see the guy reach for his gun more clearly and go to point it at the officers.
Hey, calm down, man. We're not here to hurt you, okay?
Officers finally subdue the guy and take the gun from him.
I got the gun.
He was brought to a hospital, and while being treated for his wounds, he tried to escape from the officers by running out of the hospital, but was quickly taken into custody. He was arrested for 6 counts of pointing a firearm, discharging a firearm, being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, and attempting to escape custody. The officers were placed on a routine administrative leave pending investigation.
Heather's body was eventually found on the property. She had been shot twice in the chest. After, she had been wrapped up and hidden under dry wood that had been scheduled to be burned. If you were a musician, you more than likely would have interacted with Stanley Scott. He was always performing. He was one of the hearts of the very scene itself. When Scott failed to show up for a gig, people realized, oh wait, I've actually seen Scott in like 2 days. They went over, they knocked, no answer. In fact, it looked like he hadn't been there for a couple of days. A snowplow driver had seen smoke off the road, and so he pulled up, plodded over, see what he could see. There, he found a tree smoldering, and beside was an extremely charred corpse, covered in snow. Tire tracks were also visible in the snow, so that's how he got there. And it would be determined to be Scott Sessions. But the medical examiner was able to determine how Scott had died. It appeared that Scott had been attacked with a sharp instrument from behind. He had defensive wounds, so there had been a fight. His head had been almost cut off. So the investigation began with going to Scott's house and to try and determine, he was last seen on the 8th, right? Who had he been talking to? And it turned out the last person Scott Sessions had spoken with was Heather Frank, his new girlfriend. They had only been dating a couple of weeks after meeting at, well, where else? A jazz performance. Now, Heather Frank, 48 years old, was a server at a diner, Doug's Day Diner in Loveland. Heather was also the mother of 3 boys. Friendly, charming, and a huge jazz fan, hence her going to the show and yada yada yada. She had a history of alcohol abuse, bit of a heavy drinker. That night, the Saturday night, the 8th, when he was last known to be alive, he'd been talking to Heather. She messaged him at 5:13 p.m. saying, "Wanna come over?" Followed by, "Sure, I just need to hop in the shower." Yeah, hurry. That text had been sent from Heather's phone, but it hadn't been sent by Heather. Police were tracking Scott Sessions' last known movements to his girlfriend's house, which was not too far away. She had a nice little house there at the end of a cul-de-sac. But interestingly enough, across the avenue from Heather's home was a little mall and a car park where Scott's car was found. If he indeed drove his car, from his own house to Heather's house, why not park outside her house? Well, what if it had been moved, but not by Scott? Luckily, because someone parked it in a public car park, there was CCTV. It indeed showed a person parking Scott's car on the 11th of February, the day after Scott's body had been found. Police, they wanted to do some some reconnaissance of the place where Scott went and probably didn't leave breathing. They set up surveillance outside the home and tracked down the cars parked outside, who owned it and such. One car was Heather's. Another car, though, that was parked outside was registered to one Kevin Eastman. Well, Kevin was an on-again, off-again boyfriend of Heather's. Years. I'm talking years. For work, he was an oil field buckaroo, but for pleasure, it seemed beating the shit out of Heather. He even had an active warrant out of Denver for said abuse. Another thing the police learned, tracking Scott, tracking phone signals, was that on the night of the 8th of February, he went there. They could tell who was in Heather's home at the time. Kevin had been there too. And CCTV would also be located, showing Kevin's car driving to and from where Scott's body was found. The police were watching Heather's house, and they saw Heather and Kevin coming and going, acting like everything was completely normal. It was then, just as the warrants were issued, surveillance saw both Heather and Kevin get into his car and drive. They drove 20 minutes away to the property of a guy named Troy. The following morning, the police went out there to see what they could see. What was Kevin and Heather doing out there? Well, Kevin was seen there, witnessed standing beside a burn pit. Kevin was then tailed to a gas station where he was alone and filling up gas. The following morning, the police went out there to see what they could see. What was Kevin and Heather doing out there? Well, Kevin was seen there, witnessed standing beside a burn pit. Kevin was then tailed to a gas station where he was alone and filling up gas tanks. He said he hadn't seen Heather in a day after they had a fight where he asked her to marry him and she said no. Then she just took off.
And I'm sure that you've probably heard or seen stuff in the news about somebody disappearing from Greeley. Do you know anything about that?
Musician? Yeah, there was something to happen between them.
Okay.
And yeah,
I can tell just based on your facial expressions that you know some stuff that's going on that you want to talk about.
He wasn't even there that night when his phone said he was, but he did have an excuse for maybe something happened. Maybe Heather did something. Maybe Scott attacked Heather and she self-defense.
We know that he was with you and Heather the night before at Heather's house. And then we found him on Monday in Pingree Park. Why don't you just say his name? You can say his name. Scott. Okay? You're having a hard time saying his name.
yeah, like I never did it, dude.
You met him Saturday night?
No,
Kevin,
I don't remember meeting him. I don't.
And so while detectives were questioning Kevin, police were searching the remote location where the burn pit was, where Heather may have last been. They were also searching Heather's apartment. What exactly had gone on in Heather's apartment for 7 full days, from when Scott was murdered there on the 8th to when Kevin and Heather left on the 15th. Heather's body was eventually found on the property. She had been shot twice in the chest. After, she had been wrapped up and hidden under dry wood that had been scheduled to be burned.
You killed him, okay? But you know what? I don't think that's what happened. I don't think you lured him there with the intent to kill him.
You're right, I didn't even go anywhere. I'm just saying I did to cover somebody's. Can I get a lawyer?
Kevin killed Scott. He forced Heather to remain in the house with him for a week, living a little, lovely little married couple lifestyle while she's in absolute terror the entire time, with just wanting to do whatever Kevin said so that he wouldn't get out the knife again. A huge pool of blood was found under the carpet in Heather's house. That was Scott's. Hiding behind the door, maybe, when he made Heather open it for Scott, stabbing him in the back, and then almost cutting his head off. Then he lived in the house with Heather for a full week. Her obviously in tremendous fear, worried that he'll do the same to her or to her 3 boys. The police were surveilling Heather and Kevin. Heather was alive. If the police had just acted faster and actually questioned them at the time, they could have saved Heather instead of just watching them for a couple of days until he killed her. Kevin Eastman was arrested and charged with the murders of his ex and her new boyfriend. He went on trial in 2020. The defense though took aim at Heather, that she was the killer of Scott. Like Kevin's story, that Scott had attacked Heather, tried to sexually assault her, and so she, whoops, took him out, you know, get him back. And then she killed herself and buried her own body under a big pile of wood. Kevin Eastman was found guilty on all counts. Take care of each other, Mike out.
So I just gotta say, shout out to that guy, that chapter. He be coming up with some crazy stories and be finding these crazy stories. Like, this stuff be sound like it's fiction. It'd be so crazy, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, he's a really good journalist, and some of these, you know, I honestly just be posting this stuff because this is the type of stuff I be watching to kill time at work, etc., etc. And it's like, you know what? Maybe other people be just like me, want to hear some crazy stories. And the amazing people that I come across that find this stuff, I just got to say, hey, God bless you and thank you. That's all I got to say, because it helped me in a way to be able to analyze people and look at things differently than I do. You know, but it's a good thing he got what he deserved, because this guy was crazy.